Cotton, amazing stuff. You know, that comes from a plant, but it's not so easy to get it out of the plant because you have to separate it from the seeds. Therein lies an interesting story, which takes us to a cat and a chicken. Well, I know Sylvester is a cat. Tweety, I'm not sure what species of fowl she is, but she'll play the role of chicken for now. Anyway, as the story goes, as told by Eli Whitney, the inventor of the cotton gin, one day he saw a cat trying to claw at a chicken through a chicken wire fence. And he came away with a handful of feathers. And this gave Whitney an idea how to separate the cotton from the seeds. He invented the cotton gin. The word gin comes from engine. It was a pretty simple device. It was a drum with nails on it, and it would rotate, and it would tear the cotton away from the seeds. This gave rise to the cotton industry in the U.S. and in the South, but also left large piles of rotting seeds all over the place. What to do with them? Well, you can squeeze them and get out cottonseed oil. Cottonseed oil at first was not a very usable commodity. It stank, it was dirty, but improvements were made and it could be squeezed and refined oil came out of it. It was cheap, and at first it was used to mix with lard. Lard was the main cooking fat back in those days in the 1800s. And if you mixed lard with cottonseed oil, you got a cheaper commodity. But in those days, lard was frowned upon by nutritional gurus. He said, this is an animal food. And people like Sylvester Graham and John Harvey Kellogg said we should be focusing on plant foods. Not a bad idea. So anyway, cottonseed oil mixed with lard was not great for marketing. And then an idea came to a company, came up with a different version. Instead of mixing cottonseed oil with lard, they mixed it with beef fat. They thought that this would be more marketable. And they came up with this rather remarkable product, Cottonlee. It was cheap, and they came up with a great marketing idea. In those days, of course, as I said, lard was kind of frowned upon. So they came up with the idea of making sure that people did not eat lard because it was indigestible. Came up with this clever advertising about Noah, that he took pigs along on the ark, and therein lies a problem because people started eating these indigestible fats. And they started to sell Cottonlee as an alternative to lard and came up with all kinds of interesting ideas. Like this one here. It works as a shortening, but it extends life. Kind of clever marketing. Of course, it's total nonsense. It did work as shortening, but it certainly did nothing to extend life. But pretty soon, the life of Cottonlee itself was shortened. Why? Because a new product came on the market which didn't have any animal products in it at all. And this was Crisco. Crisco was made with pure vegetable oil. Now that vegetable oil was cottonseed oil. Cotton isn't really a vegetable, but we'll let that one go. So they started marketing this product. It didn't have any lard. It didn't have any beef fat. It was made purely of plant product. And their marketing was that it was digestible and that doctors recommended it because it was digestible. 9 out of 10 doctors. I don't know about the 10th doctor because, of course, it's digestible. It's a food, and all foods are digestible. And pretty soon, Crisco ran into a problem as well. That problem was that when you make Crisco, use a process called hydrogenation. You start with oil and hydrogenate it. This makes it into a solid. And thus, trans fats became a headline because trans fats are formed in the hydrogenation process, and they're not good. They raise blood cholesterol levels. So these days, Crisco is no longer made with hydrogenated fats. It is made of palm oil and soybean oil, and these are these days thought to be quite healthy. Nevertheless, of course, the people who buy for clean eating don't like it because they say it's a processed product. Yes, it is a processed product, but you know what? It makes for very good apple pie crust. And that is something that was promoted by Crisco in the early days. They came out with a little book like this. It sold very, very well. People wanted to know how to bake with Crisco. And then came the ultimate marketing. They consulted a rabbi. And the Rabbi Margulies, had a quote. And the quote was that the Hebrew race had been waiting 4,000 years for Crisco. The idea was it was kosher, it could be mixed with meat, and there was no problem. Gee, interesting marketing. Waiting 4,000 years for Crisco? I thought we've been waiting for the Messiah.